Welcome to the final talk through, where we walk you through high-level real estate insights, lessons, and tips through unfiltered conversations with investors, agents, and industry leaders. All right, everybody, welcome back to the final talk through. This is episode number 10, and today I am super honored to be sitting here with my boy, Andy Voyen. Thanks for coming to the podcast, bro.
My man, an absolute pleasure to be here.
100%, man, 100%. And obviously a lot's going on right now. You just left a real estate panel with like a bunch of top producers. So I want to talk a little bit about just like, again, who you are. A lot of people might know you as like, from Love Island, right? That's like a common one. There's a lot, you're kind of the man in demand right now. There's a lot more to the picture. So I just want to give some background. So you're in real estate. Tell them a little bit about that story and kind of how you got here.
Yeah, so I'll back it way back to when I grew up in the east side of the cities. Matamidi High School is where I grew up, graduated in 2017. Went on to play football at North Dakota State, graduated early, COVID hit, and then I kind of had that decision of, am I going to go on and get my master's or am I going to move on with life? And at that point, I knew I wasn't going to make it to the NFL. So I knew, all right, what's next for myself? And I kind of started to analyze of where do I really want to go? And I want to be my own boss. And my mother's been in the business, and I see how she lives her life and does her work. And I really appreciated that, and I like the real estate business and how it's done. So that kind of got me into the real estate business, helped me get out of college football a little bit. I was done with it. My heart was falling out of it. So started in real estate in February of 2021. Been just over 2 years now and just kind of haven't looked back. Took 6 months to get my first deal done, but since that first deal was done, haven't looked back since.
That's about on average. And I will say, like, it can be super just like encapsulating. The moment you get that first one, it's like the wind under your sails. And it can be everything for you. So that makes total sense, adds up. All right. So just to give the audience a little bit of context, I've obviously done a little bit of research on you, of course. And like, from what I can see, you've done the college football path. Difficult, very difficult. Student athletes, very underratedly hard. You've done some modeling, you've done the TV show, and now you're doing, in my opinion, one of the hardest things, which is creating a business around yourself. What do I need to know about like your story or like even your early years? Like, was there like a defining moment, or where does that drive to do all that come from? Because I think, not everyone sees all of it, but that's clearly a certain type of person. So where does that come from?
There is one defining moment that I look back at. It was early in high school, probably sophomore year of high school, that I had a narrative behind myself of he's the big lazy. I was more of like the naturally talented, didn't work that hard kind of guy.
Just gifted.
Sure. Not trying to sound like arrogant or anything, but so I kind of got a little bit of that narrative where he just didn't really work that hard. And I got to college and I realized that I'm not shit. Realistically, I'm just a little fish in the pond again. And I had a rude awakening right there of, all right, I got to work for what I got. And truthfully, I didn't get to where I wanted to be in college. I obviously had aspirations to go play professionally somewhere football. My heart fell out of it. That's okay. But I knew once I got into real estate, I was not going to take any second chances. I was going to work my ass off and get to where I want to be business-wise, relationship-wise, whatever it may be, family-wise. I want to make sure that there's no regrets. You don't want to leave untapped potential on the table.
That's a big thing, I think, for a lot of that's a common trait of highly successful people. And again, I actually want to get into that when we talk about the agent section. Yep. But, just like a trait that I commonly see is like that what could it have been? And like, that's what keeps me up at night. That's something I see a lot from people. So it's just interesting and reassuring of the character I've already become to know here. So it makes total sense.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is ingrained in me to this day. Yeah, it's something I remember. It's something that I will continue to carry with me with my modeling, with my real estate, whatever it may be. That's something that's ingrained in me.
How often do you reflect on that?
Whenever I start to hit a low point, I say business is going a little bit slow periods. I don't got a whole lot coming in. And I remember back in the day of, man, you would have just caved in. You'd have said, all right, I'm good enough. But
how are you going to be different now?
How are you going to be different now, right? How are you going to reach those different levels? How are you going to get out of this slump? How are you going to get beyond where I didn't get to college football and make the professional? How are we going to get beyond that? How are we going to be a top producer? How are we going to be what you want to be?
Absolutely. That's awesome, man. Okay, real quick. So you talked a little bit about your mom, being kind of an inspiration. You probably saw a lot of people see the lifestyle and say, dude, that looks solid, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? So where did kind of like the passion for real estate come from outside of just wanting to be your own boss? It's tough.
That's a good question. Honestly, it's knowing what your why is. When you get into business, you say even back in college football is one of our main talking points of like, what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And it's having that overarching, again, what's driving you? And for me wise, like there's a lot of there's a lot of things I have and I want to accomplish in life, whether it's giving my family everything they want and need in life, whether it's bringing some nonprofits that I've been able to work with in the past back into Minnesota, things like that, where I have bigger visions in mind where I can utilize and hopefully turn communities that has provided me so much growing up on the east side of the cities that I want to give back to eventually.
That's amazing, bro. That's amazing. So yeah, like you said, it's like an instrument almost to, there is an element of like, you kind of get woven into the community as you work in it, as you serve it. And then eventually as you continue to build your business and success, to even monetarily contribute back to it and build it out, like you said, for your family, for your community. I saw a similar thing, like an avenue for my family to kind of cause it can be so layered, right? You know what I mean? Like you can work people in so many different ways and, ownership throughout the entire family. And then one thing leads to another. It can be extremely rewarding.
That's just it. So it's knowing your why. And then that's what gets you up. That's what wakes me up every day at 6 a.m. to get to the gym, get to the office, touch base with the clients, whatever it may be, continuing to make myself uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
The moment you're comfortable and you stop growing.
All right, so really quick before we dive into the real estate stuff, we're obviously going to touch on all the insights, but I do got to ask. So you were on Love Island USA season 4.
Yes, sir.
How the hell do you even get on that show? Like what was the process like to getting on the show?
Man, that was crazy. So I probably had 2 reality TV shows before Love Island reach out. So they slide in the DMs, I'll tell you. So I had one show called F-Boy Island that they're doing a remake, F-Girl Island, that they want to be one of the 3 guys and 30 girls. I said, not the one. There was also a Naked and Afraid dating show. I said, and then Love Island reached out very last second. They're probably April 28th, I want to say. We're getting actually on that 1-year mark right now where they just DM'd me, said, is this something you'd be interested in? And I've seen Love Island in the past. I knew a little bit about it.
Oh, yeah.
And there was 2 reality shows because I could start to feel some momentum going that way of, all right, maybe this is an avenue I might look into this year. Bachelor and Love Island are ones I'm like, all right, if they reach out, I would look into it. So they DM'd me. I said, yeah, let's do it. So I had about 3 interviews going in the month of May, and then that whole month just started to compound. I had to get medical tests. I had to do this and that. And I honestly, at that point, I kind of had to take myself out of real estate for a little bit to slowly dive into this reality TV world that I was getting myself into. So once middle of May hit, I was pretty much out of real estate, and I had to kind of focus in on getting medicals, getting interviews done, and then got flown out. I believe it was June 20th.
That was my next question, was how quick was the turnaround? And like, what's going through your mind, from like start of May to June? Like, what are you ready for it? Are you not ready for it? I mean, how much do they prep you?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're doing all these interviews, and you're still not knowing, if you're going to get flown out.
Sure.
So I didn't know that I was going to get flown out until probably last week of May.
Oh,
and at that point, when you get flown out, you still don't know where you're going to be put onto the show. You might be,
sure.
You
like
might be
first,
one of the first
group,
5.
OGs.
You might be one of the last ones, a bombshell coming in. You don't know. You might actually get cut from the show and actually get flown out there, never make it on the show. There are some people that happens. Actually, I remember Serenity was actually on my season, was on Love Island season 3 USA. She got flown out to Hawaii and never made it on the show.
You're kidding.
I'm not
That's
kidding.
crazy. I would have never known that.
And
I would have never known that.
Yeah, and so now she got put on the season 4, and I'm grateful for her. She's an amazing human being. But I didn't even know getting flown out there of, am I going to be on this show? They were very adamant, Andy, you're going to want to come out. I think this is going to be worth it.
So they told you without telling you, but at the same time, to the same token, like without that closure, that's a lot of time invested into something which you've already touched on in the pre-show. Most valuable assets are time. And you're going through 2 months, like, dude, on pins and needles, like, is this going to be it? And sure enough, I mean, no turning back, right?
And that's just it. I think the biggest thing was I would regret this if I didn't do it.
1,000%.
And the worst part of the show was going to be June 20th to July 15th. July 15th is when the show started.
Okay.
We're quarantined in a hotel room for 3 weeks.
That's right.
The last 2 weeks, I don't have my phone. All I can do is Netflix and work out the bands. We can't leave the room at all. It was like,
did you at least have like a couple homies in there with you, or was it just you?
Just yourself. You couldn't meet any of the cast members. The only time you could
found a little inner peace before the show started. Just sat in the room and just like,
biggest thing is,
what can you do? Like,
I forgot how to talk to a girl.
Dude, I was going to say you're coming in rusty. Game 0. So you kind of just touched on it a little bit, but like, is there anything else that like you wish that you could shed light on as far as like the Love Island experience goes that the general public maybe doesn't see, or like anything where you're like, this ain't so glamorous, or you didn't like it as much, anything like that?
I think the biggest thing for me is everything, and I'm not going to say it's forced, like relationships, friendships, whatever it may be. but it moves at a very fast pace in there. A day in the villa feels like a week in real life. Realistically, you're talking about kids, family, yada 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 on less than a week getting to know her. I didn't even know her last name at that point. Realistically,
That's nuts. There's a learning curve to like that type of relationship.
No,
building.
and it's
like,
hard to get to know somebody too when you can't see what real life looks like. It's so easy in a villa when you're sitting on a pool, you're sitting drinking some, I don't know, getting some good sun rays in.
Yeah.
It's super easy to have a fabulous relationship, but then you get into real life, and when the girl I came up the show with, we got in real life, it's just things didn't mesh. Things didn't go well. I mean, distance was one thing. And then just personality type and just kind of how we were. It just didn't mesh, and that's okay. And I didn't want to waste her time.
100%. And I think it's good and mature of you to have seen it as quick as you did. And another thing too, man, it's like that there's only so much you can uncover about that everyday life in the villa, because everyone's going to paint the perfect picture. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying anyone on the show would be disingenuous, but the reality of it is like you can't fully show exactly what your true colors are until you live in it for a couple of weeks.
Dude, you're up till 4 a.m. every morning.
You're kidding.
Your nightcaps start from 10 p.m. You're up till 4 a.m. Wake up at 9 a.m. You're exhausted. I literally had to consume probably 600 to 800 milligrams of caffeine a day just to get my brain working.
Perfect answer to that question, because I had no idea. I figured you guys are like beauty sleep, naps, like the whole nine.
No, it really is exhausting there. People probably are like, oh my gosh, they're literally just sitting in the villa. We're working around the clock. I know I say working around the clock, but like you're mentally
I would say emotionally
and mentally on, and it becomes very taxing when you can't just take that step back, because there's no places within the villa where you can just go get that time to yourself. The porta potty, we had a porta potty. That is the only place in the villa where you cannot be in front of cameras. You're still got your mics on. They're hearing things.
They're hearing you talk to yourself like, please God, help me out. I just need to figure this out.
but that's the one place in the villa that they can't see you.
Yeah.
And so you just don't get a whole lot of time just to take your time and just think about your thoughts and slow things down and process things. I think that was one of the
100%.
hardest things for myself.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that being mentally exhausting. I think a 1 hour therapy session, I leave, I'm like, get me some coffee. Like I'm dead. That's just, it's like you said, it's mentally taxing. And in there, you just got to share it all, put it all on the table. And it's like,
there's just so many things too going on the show, how I thought I might be portrayed. I haven't watched any of my parts, to be honest. I've heard about it probably 100 million different times of how you're portrayed.
Only imagine,
but from what I was understanding, again, I got the narrative of Mama's Boy on day one. And that was a 30-second conversation with Courtney that I didn't even think twice about. I didn't even think, I was like, oh my gosh, that was a really good first day. Like,
I had no idea that the one thing that you said was going to be the narrative all of a sudden. And then there's this new sentiment and you're like, oh, well.
And at that point, my mom had to go private on all of her socials. She was getting messages.
Oh my gosh.
I got off the show.
She's a public, I mean, she's an agent. Like she's got to be findable.
We're all very findable.
We're in the real estate business.
That's
a
all
crazy combo right there. Reality TV and public info.
So she had to go private on things for a little while. And I think one other fascinating thing too that not a lot of people know about is going to be our reunion show. Maddie and I actually, from my understanding, I thought we were going to be a big part of this reunion show. We were front and center right next to the 3 finalists. We were the very first ones to get interviewed.
Yeah.
And then I obviously get back home, hear about the reunion. We didn't get aired once. Our interview didn't get aired. We were the only couple that did not. And I was like, what could have happened? Why did they not air this? And I look back at it and I'm like, I just don't think we gave them the answer that they wanted. We didn't say we're in a relationship. We didn't give them the storyline that they're looking for. I was on the Andy Cohen show, and that was the night that Maddie left Love Island to come meet back up with me. And I was like, my phone's blowing up right now. I'm on the Andy Cohen show. That's got to be why. And then I get back and I hear like, Maddie's coming for you. I'm like, what's going on right now? And so then her and I meet back up, and things were good. Things were really good for a little short stint. And then you learn life.
Well, it's like the peak of like that. Oh my God.
Like, oh my gosh. Glad. Like the euphoria
just
of like,
exactly.
Oh my gosh,
it's
you're
just
coming off the show.
Yeah.
I feel like we can really do something here.
Sure.
And then you kind of, again, you get into real life and you kind of start to feel things out. You're in Oklahoma City. I'm in Minnesota. And it's just things like that where, man, I look back on the reunion. I'm like, gosh, I just don't think we gave them the answer we were looking for. And I thought we were going to be a huge part of that show.
Yeah, you were there in real life. You're like, I was a huge part of that show.
We were front and center
That's
right
crazy,
by the finalists.
dog.
You can see us right behind all of Zeta, Timmy, and Sydney and Isaiah were right between them. I'm
That's
like, gosh,
nuts.
this is gonna be one of our shows.
Can't wait to watch this back.
Let's do
It's gonna be
this.
sick.
And then, nope,
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Life after the show now. Here we are in Minnesota. We're obviously both trying to make a name for ourselves. It's a small community of absolute incredible real estate agents here in the cities. So just want to ask, how has this show kind of impacted your business and just like as far as meeting people and things like that?
It's a good question. Again, we're in the networking business.
100%.
That's what we do. And I think this is, again, I never went on to Love Island USA with the thought of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get X amount of business off of this. I went on there for the intent to find love, to meet some cool people, and just have a good summer. I would have regrets if I didn't go on it. So I want to first say that, like, I did not have business intentions in mind. But obviously, yes, in the back of your mind, it's also, you're on national TV. You're going to be seen by people.
Yeah, you're going to know some new people. Some people are going to like you.
You're going to know some new people. So it's definitely opened the books to national connections when it comes to referring nationally, meeting national realtors, and things like that. So it's opened the book up more, I don't know, outside of Minnesota, but also within Minnesota. You're a little bit more of a prominent figure. You walk outside, you get recognized here and there. And so it's just that kind of thing. It's helped business, but I also hope, and my goal is my business has grown because of the work I do.
Yep, and your business can speak, and the experience of it can speak for itself. Like, I even will just totally, candid, impromptu co-sign, like, the marketing that I see you do, like, as someone who's in this community, been working in this community, like, every day, every hour for the past 3.5 years, I can see that, like, your experience is there as well. And I think that will speak volumes and continue to pour through. I didn't even think about the national connections, because think about the big agents in the States who watch that show.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's massive whales who probably have these networks like sizes that your and I brain as young agents can't even comprehend.
That's
right. That's got to be fun.
So it's been fun. I've referred, I believe, to 8 different states now.
Wow.
Have you ever referred to one in Toronto?
No way.
So we've gone into different
Canadian dollars.
We've gone up to Canada.
I love it.
But yeah, it's just been cool. I mean, again, I like meeting new people and seeing how they do business. So it's going to open up that too, of just opening my mind to, again, new ways to do business.
Yeah, new avenues. And like you said, networking, creating like meaningful connections, and probably the amount of game you pick up for like real estate game when meeting all these people in all these different markets. That's invaluable right there.
Yeah.
That I can't even speak to. That's crazy. Okay, so you are one of Minneapolis's relatively newer homeowners now. You just bought your own place. And I think, as someone in their 20s, I think we can both relate to what that experience is like. So shed some light on that. And what's something that was kind of like a surprising takeaway to the home buying experience that the audience could take away from?
I would say the biggest thing for me when buying my house is it took me probably 6 months to locate my property. I changed from townhomes and then to single family, then changed from like Northeast Minneapolis down to South Minneapolis. I changed my criteria so many times, and Love Island definitely got in the middle of that. I was doing my home search before, and then I got off of Love Island. I'm like, I lived at home prior to or after college too, and that was one of the biggest things that I am very thankful for, that I got to save up. I didn't have to pay rent, and save my dollars to put it to where I want to put my dollars realistically. I believe real estate's going to be one of your best investments out there. So very thankful for that. And I located my place off market in the Hale neighborhood, South Minneapolis.
Nice.
And I love Lake Nokomis, a beautiful Tudor home, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1-car garage.
Nice.
I lived alone in it for about 2 months. I got a roommate now. But it was too much space for me. I realized that I'm like, this is getting a little lonely in here, but it's a very emotional transaction. I mean, you get caught up in it. It's a lot of money. It's your biggest investment in something that, again, you should not take lightly. And when you are a first-time home buyer, realistically, who you work with matters. If it's Austin, if it's myself, whatever it may be, who you work with really does matter.
1,000%. And I think, too, you touched on a very interesting point that I kind of want to unpack just slightly. Your criteria changed over 6 months. Like, let that sink in if you're thinking about it. Change the time horizon ever so slightly that you look at this buying experience, because I think that's such a common theme of people will come to me, we'll do our buyer consult via Zoom, right? Is usually how I do it. We go through everything and they've got this list of must-haves and I've taken diligent notes. And like by week number 4, that list is completely corkscrewed, turned upside down. Nothing is the same. Like it's like a completely new house you're hunting for.
That's exactly
right?
it.
And so be okay with that, right? Like that's real. That's life. And that's what you don't know you don't know your first time around.
And that's why I also say, like, come in with the a broad idea.
Yeah.
Test other things. Test maybe you're thinking townhome or single family.
I like that.
Get into both of them. See the options. Maybe you find out you do want an HOA and you don't have to shovel or mow your lawn, things like that.
1000%.
And so, again, come in with that broad search. And then once you kind of start to get into it, narrow that down. Narrow it down because it gets very frustrating when you keep that broad search. Narrow it down, know what you want, and be confident in your decision when you find that right place.
So you're in your place, you're settled in, you've got your first house. Did I hear correctly? You're already setting the table for another purchase in 2024.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So what maybe like tips would you give to someone who's 12 months out? What are you employing in that or deploying a strategy in that process?
Budget. Don't overspend. Material goods, they're very short term. Fulfillment wise, just be smart with your money. I got a separate savings account right now that I'm already drastically putting a good amount of my monthly income right to that just so I can have enough for this down payment. Just be smart with your money. We're young right now. Again, I did just buy a new car. I'm not going to lie to you. Probably overspent.
Well, your car got total.
Overspent a little bit.
Like you said, you could have gone like baller. You went luxury.
I went the medium.
Yeah, you went medium baller. But
That's
still
what I'm
baller.
saying. But just be smart with your money. Honestly, it's very... When you get in that rent cycle, it's hard to get out of the rent cycle because everyone wants the luxury goods. They pay that $2,000, that $2,500 for rent, and it's hard to save up enough money each month to continue to get to that down payment and that closing costs as well. It's not just the down payment. So it's just being smart with your money when we're young right now to set yourself up for long-term success.
Absolutely, love that. Couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of people have the budgeting issue of like, I get paid. And then I make my mortgage payment, and then whatever I have saved up, whatever I have left over, that's when I buy like the Dior's, or that's when I buy like the drinks at the bar, right? Yep. And then it's like, you could do that forever, but that's why you never exit the renting cycle.
And
like
don't get me wrong, live your life, please.
Yeah,
go have some drinks.
You do deserve
live your
things.
Life.
Yes, that often gets misconstrued. You deserve to spend your money to some extent.
But we don't need to go out buying Dior. We don't need the designer goods right now.
Unless your goals are to rent forever, because if they are, I'm not even sure why you're listening to this, to be honest. That's totally cool. But if they are, it's probably not the show for you. So, short-term sacrifice, long-term wealth makes total sense to me.
That's why I lived at home.
Yep, 100%. I love that. I recommend that all day long. People are always confused. Like, you think I should live at home after college? I'm like, fuck yes,
it's not
absolutely.
Ideal. Don't get me wrong,
Dude.
but like,
well, but you have no living expense. Like, you can get out of there in like 6 to 8 months with like low down payment programs. You can get out of living at home. It can be a very Band-Aid like solution, especially if you get invited out to like a show or anything for like a period of time. Lastly, I always ask a question for the real estate agents in the community. Like we said, it's a smaller community, but there's some dogs out here, right? And so for the people who want to enter that small, tight-knit community of real high producers, what would you say is your key either trait that you have or a key piece of advice that you've received that's really allowed you to springboard forward and create that customer experience?
I would say the biggest thing to really grow your brand and your business is first off, know your strengths. Know what you're good at and hammer that away. Be consistent. And the biggest thing for me is say it with some conviction. Say it with your chest. I believe sometimes you got to fake it to make it a little bit. When you're new into the business, you don't have a lot of experience to talk from. When you start to get some of that experience, then it becomes a lot easier, more natural to talk with conviction. But when you're new, fresh into the business, you don't have any experience, sometimes you got to fake it to make it a little bit. And so once you start to get, more experienced, some deals under your belt, then things really start to flow. I
think what I just kind of heard you say too is like for the agents out there, the conviction will help them get the closure that like, I'm with a person who's an expert. Right? Conviction is like the ultimate belief in your product, right? That really is going to instill in them the closure that they need to just kind of close that loop. Is kind of what I'm hearing you say.
What it is.
And that's like a muscle you can practice, like your conviction, or just believe in real estate as an investment tool, and people feel that shit.
To have somebody that, yes, again, I understand if you're new in the business, you don't have a whole lot of experience, it can be hard. That's when you do get that chance, study your ass off, know the areas that they're looking. Work that extra hours. And then again, once you start to learn the areas, it becomes super easy.
Like you're saying though, man, it's like you got that opportunity almost like, I'm not going to say scare yourself, but like take a moment to appreciate the size and the impact of like this brokering that you're doing, because that pressure will be good for you because, like you said, it's going to make you study. It's going to make you be brushed up. You're going to show up to these showings and you're going to have dug up shit that they would have otherwise never known. And you have time to do it because, like you said, you're not that busy, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, yeah, totally.
And then when you get to that closing table and they're signing away, again, their biggest investment ever, and you're seeing their excitement and their happiness and their, their gratitude towards you to help them make decision, that's fulfilling.
Absolutely.
That feels so freaking good. And that's why I love to do what I do. And I'm sure that's the same with you.
100%, man. You get to watch their life unfold and be a part of it. And
that's what I'm saying.
It creates for like the least transactional relationship ever, because that's why agents are so close with their clients, is because like you get pulled more into their world than you ever probably like imagine you're going to be. And I mean, you're hearing about what fucking Sunday breakfast is going to look like, what kids are in what room, what holidays are going to look like. And that is the intangible side of it that like creates that fucking that bond. That's the fulfillment. Like you said earlier, it's fulfilling, man. It's fulfilling. All right. Well, that's a great tip to leave the agents out there. I think this has been an incredible episode, bro. I appreciate you coming on for sure.
Pleasure.
Seriously, taking the time. Where can people find you if they want more Andy, they want to see more about your experience that you provide, and just your content, bro, because you're killing it. Go ahead and plug yourself.
Yeah, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. It's at Andy Voyen, Andy, V as in Victor, Oyen. And then I'm also on TikTok, same handle. And then business-wise, the Voyen team on Instagram.
Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Seriously, this has been a ton of fun. I hope you guys got a bunch of nuggets. Play it back if you want to hear something again. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.